In this video, I'll show you how you can farm to the top few percent in boxingstar without paying a single cent. Here's my KO mode, top 2%, and here you can see my tag mode, top 5%. And here's everything I paid for in 2024 and then 2023. All payments are for Skype except one photo app thing. I never believed in paying for games, and in my time we paid once for a game and that's it. Nowadays games move towards a pay-to-win model where you can get stronger by paying. That's not what I believe in. I'll show you how I reached the top few percent without spending any money in just 6 months. Technically, if you do include my first 3 months randomly messing around, it is 9 months. But what I can assure you is that after this video, free players will get to improve at a much faster rate while continuing to play for free. And even if you are a paying player, you will learn how to maximize what you pay for. Hence, you can spend less to get to the same level, or you can spend the same but get much stronger. Why farming correctly is so vital is because if you focus on the right things, you don't even need to be that strong. Look at this. These are the omegas I have to get to the screenshot you saw at the start of the video. No omegas are overfused. Here you can see my player stats and my main gear. Jin is my main fighter, over 600k overall stats, nearly 700k. I run 0 reflex, and dwarf uppercut is my main item. Next, I have Jacob with the orc hook, also 600k stats overall, but my orc hook is only level 1 transcended. So if you know what you're doing, you don't need that much stats or gear when it comes to farming. So a quick disclaimer here in this video is all about farming. Just take a look at how confusing the game is, right? They have game modes here, there, everywhere. The menu is all over the place. And in-game explanation is pretty poor as well. I mean, it's natural that new players will not know what to build because it's just too confusing, right? You can drain power in the gym, you can upgrade gear to get power, but you also have gear options to get critical. So how this video is different from other videos is that this video is a clear whiteboard style explanation that cuts right through to the core of the game. There could be many videos around showing gameplay and they're good, but just seeing how good they are may not help you understand why they do what they do. So this video will break down the entire game concept such that you can understand the game as a whole. And just in case it becomes too long, there will be a part 2, 3, or however many as necessary. I want to destroy the notion that you need to pay in order to reach the top few percent, because you've seen I'm in the top 2 to 5%. Nothing beats spending time and money as compared to spending time alone, but it's not necessary unless you want to be like top 50 or top 100, which then puts you in the top 1 to 1.5%, which I'm not there. So look at these guys who are spending 5 to 10k. It's fine if that's what you like and want to be at the top of the top, because when you're really talking about top of the top, spending is required. What I want to help players avoid is spending money on overpriced items, and I also want free players to focus on doing the right things so that you can still enjoy the game. If free players waste their efforts playing and spending time to watch ads only to waste those resources on useless things, then they'll end up feeling confused and have a lack of progress, and then that causes them to feel like, oh, they have to pay to properly progress in game. So I don't know if this is a deliberate action by the developers, because just look at the number of game modes, stats, tasks, and new gear. So for sure, confusion and a lack of progress causes frustration, and that leads to overspending. I want to show you that you can enjoy the game with 0 spending, and if you do want to spend, I'll help you make every dollar go a long way. So you can compare these two guys with this Tontan guy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Tontan was in Master League and he spent way less than these two. So you can check his YouTube channel for gameplay and tips, but I think ultimately what this shows is that if you spend your money wisely, knowing what items to farm for and what to spend on will go a long way. Effective farming can be put down into a graph, so think of it this way. On the vertical axis you have strength, which are your stats or how strong you are. This is not power in the sense of the power that you can train in gym to hit harder. It's not. It's just a general way to say how strong you are overall. Now on this axis you have, say, how much time you've spent or how much money you've spent, or some combination of both. Regardless of whatever you do, the final goal is always to say, okay, how do you reach the maximum stats in the shortest possible time, or spending the least amount of money? So what we want to do is to try to raise this to say, okay, can we reach it in a faster way? How fast this goes is really the rate of earning resources. What we want to do is to try to use as little stats as possible while scoring the most resources in every mode. So that's why it's not just about becoming as strong as possible or maxing out a single fighter. When we want to maximize our rate of growth, what we want to do is to look at the rewards that we can get from a certain game mode and then reach that level and not try to put too much resources into building stats that aren't used. So for example, if I can get, say, this amount of rewards in tag mode using only 100 power and 100 strength, there's no need for me to use 200 power and 200 speed. It's a waste of stats, because what happens will be something like this. If I train my fighter to have 200 power and 200 speed, but I'm still stuck at the same amount of resources, then next week I'm still going to grow at the same rate. This is going to be the next week. But if I use the resources to build perhaps 100 power and 100 speed into another fighter, or perhaps I build reflex or some kind of speed down to help me improve, and I can get to the next level of rewards, then perhaps in week 2 actually I can reach a higher amount here. And that's the whole idea. We want to increase the rate of resources gained every week. KO mode screenshot showing that I was in the top 2%. You've seen this earlier. My main character was only around 670k or so. You can see here. My tag mode score for this was also probably around top 10%. When I reached around 680k in total stats, that was when my tag mode hit the top 5%. And because I felt that trying to reach the top 1% in tag would take too much resources as compared to the additional gain I could get, I stopped building my fighters for tag mode. For some other players, they may feel, oh, they need to keep pushing for 700k, 800k, 900k stats. But in this case, it hasn't been giving me additional resources, because you can see that in KO mode, I'm able to get 650k. And here, I'm in the top 5%. Not this screenshot, but right now I've reached top 5%, so I've stopped building it. Just a quick note that throughout the video, I'll refer to resources, which of course could mean anything. It could be your gold, your coins, it could be your omega parts, it could be your gym training parts, but generally I'll just talk about resources in terms of coin and gold, because everything, or mostly everything, can be bought with coin or gold. The whole point of farming, remember, we want to maximize these resources, but we want to minimize stats. Look at this. When I'm at 690k, my reflex is 0. If I don't need it, I don't train it. Do bear in mind that throughout this video, I'll break down the general guidelines, but what stat you need and what game modes you want to focus on really depends on your own specific situation, right? How your fighters are set up, what resources you have. For a while, for me, KO mode was the most important, but right now my focus has shifted to rival mode. For you, it could be different. Sometimes it depends on your play style as well. While I say that for me, I'm focusing on rival mode, doesn't mean that you should. Every week, you must play every game mode, and I'll show you the ranking of the different game modes later on. But depending on your fighters and stats, you will perform better in some modes more than others. What you need to do is, number one, you have to assess where you are with your current game modes. Depending on that, you will know what gives you the most resources and your fighter's strength. Then you must look at the next level of rewards that you'll get, or what's the most needed resources that you need. Because then you'll know which game mode to work on that gives you the next level of rewards in the shortest possible time. How can you reach it the fastest? Then number 3, you will know what stats you need to build to get to that next level of rewards. So you start by looking at your game modes, then you maximize to try to reach the next level of rewards as fast as you can. And because you want to minimize building stats to reach the next level of rewards, remember it's about using as little stats to get to the next level of rewards that you can. Then you'll know what stats you need. What is the bare minimum in order for you to reach the next level? Then from there, every week, you have to assess again and say, okay, are you going to chase the next level of rewards in this mode, or are you going to chase another game mode? So it becomes a cycle. So this is what I call the farm loop. Again, don't try to maximize every stat. Use only the stats that you need to get to the next level of rewards so that you get as much coin and gold as possible. For example, my main fighter has an uppercut glove that's strong enough to get the max rewards on KO mode. I will then shift my focus to rival mode. There's no point in me trying to get my fighter stronger than is needed, because in KO mode, the highest level of rewards is when I reach 650k. For example, if perhaps I may only have 12k speed, but if I'm getting the most amount of rewards, there's no need for me to reach 13k or 14k speed. I also did mention here that it could also depend on the most needed resources rather than what you can reach in terms of the next level of rewards. What this means is that, for example, if you need to grade up your gear and you need some stock parts, or you have transcended gear and every time you upgrade you need the stock parts. In this case, rival mode is actually the best. It doesn't matter that other modes may allow you to reach the next level of rewards the fastest, because you need those glove and protector parts in order to level up your gear. So then it's about looking at the most needed resources rather than the next level of rewards, because getting those stock parts could be more beneficial. Therefore, there's some interchangeability in terms of looking at how you can get to the next level of rewards the fastest versus what you need. With the goal of farming in mind, free-to-play players will spend a lot less time. I took 6 months to reach the top 5%, and that was after already spending the first 3 months doing crap. So scoring wins like this may make you feel good, and at first when you're having fun, of course, go ahead and play. But if you're trying to maximize your time spent, then every win that you get is actually a win that you don't need. Think about it. If you only need 5 wins to get the max amount of resources in that week, then when you're playing the 6th, 7th, 8th match, unless it's purely for your entertainment, it's a waste of time. Free-to-play players really have to try to maximize their time, because you don't want to be playing hundreds and hundreds of matches if it doesn't help you in gaining resources. Look at this here, around 4,000 wins at the time of taking the screenshot. If I could get there before 3,000 wins, I would have saved a quarter of my time. And for free-to-play players, that's really valuable. And if you wish to spend money, when you understand the modes you must target, then you'll know what resources you need to buy to help you in those specific modes. Recall my zero reflex strategy? If someone builds every single stat in their main fighter and maxes out, I'm sure they'll beat my fighter. But having a strong fighter in itself doesn't lead to additional resources gain, because your character can beat mine, but that doesn't help you gain any resources. Again, I will use the example in KO mode. Even if your character can beat mine, but in KO mode, we're both at the 650k reward level, we're getting the same amount of resources from KO mode every week. And if I use those resources to build something else in another fighter, then I'm going to be able to progress faster. Here, I'll just show you some of my rivals in the rival mode. And you can look at my opponents, they have way more wins, and we're in the same rival mode rank. This means that they have spent way more time and or money, and we're still in the same group. Imagine if you could reach this group spending less time. If they spent 20k wins to reach this group, but I only need 4k, I've just spent 20% of the time they spent. I'm pulling up these screenshots again just as a reminder that there are a lot of good advice out there. And these guys here, although they've spent money, they're going to give you a lot of good advice. But I think their focus is on becoming the strongest fighter, which is actually a long-term goal. If you focus on becoming the strongest fighter as your near-term goal, it actually slows your progress down. Many of them may not actually realize that while they're giving advice to becoming the strongest fighter, they don't take into account if you're a free-to-play player or if you want to spend less money, then they may not actually be giving the advice that helps you get there the fastest. They're just giving you advice based on what will make you the strongest fighter. So you can see in this screenshot, because they've spent money, sometimes they don't feel the slowness in their advice. Not so much that their advice is bad, but because they have spent money, the slowness doesn't really impact them. Like any pay-to-win games, if you have unlimited money, it could speed up your progress infinitely. The other thing is that perhaps they are already so good, they're in the top 1%, so the advice they give really only takes account into the fact that they are the top 1% fighting the top 1%. That's the situation they are in, and that's around the end part of the game. But that situation does not apply to 99% of us. Here are the various game modes ranked by order of importance. I'll cover each in detail. The number one mode is boss mode in Fight Club. Many people are focused on the battle in Fight Club or even trying to get into Master League. And those modes are fun, but nothing beats boss mode in Fight Club. Why? For 0% defeat, you get 120 gold. And for 100% defeat, you'll get 220 gold. New players can get this because if you join a club with a sufficiently strong club member, you can use their fighter in boss mode. Even with the time limit and cooldown period, you can fight the boss twice a week, which means you'll get around 440 gold plus some F coins. And this is even when you have a really weak fighter. If you compare rewards against effort, this is the number one mode for sure. Second place would be KO mode. So compare Fight Club's boss mode's 440 gold per week that I mentioned previously. In order to hit 400 gold per week, to somewhat match the 440 gold, you need to reach 200k points. If you play regularly and for a while, even if you're a free player, you will get to 200k points. The only difference is that it could take a while, so that's why boss mode in Fight Club is much easier because it makes use of team effort in your Fight Club. At higher levels though, KO mode beats the boss mode in Fight Club because with the boss mode's cooldown and rediscovery time, per week you're limited to that 440 gold. Yet at higher levels, if you hit 650k, you can get 1000 gold. Here in this week, I hit 600k and I could get 800 gold that week. So Fight Club boss mode doesn't scale up even as you progressively get stronger, but still for the amount of effort, boss mode is number one and KO mode will be number two. On top of the weekly goal, I'd argue that the knockout shop is probably the best shop. K coins are super useful in the beginning to mid stages because of the catalog. You can use it to select an exclusive gear as your main glove for only 2000 K coins. You should buy this. Then you can continue to use that and build on that glove until you get better ones that are not available in the catalog. Even if you do get better gear later, getting a good unique grade catalog like a stance glove, it can be used for your second, third, or fourth fighter. If you're lucky enough to get a good stance glove, of course you don't need to buy this, but this is just an additional option. It was super useful for me because I couldn't even get a good exclusive uppercut glove and I had to buy one from here. Even at later stages when you become more advanced, don't forget there are legendary gloves, and of course this is very important because this is Omega stock parts which you need to upgrade Omega gloves. Therefore this shop really has everything for beginner players right up to late stage players. Then comes tag mode. The power of tag mode is in getting bio gear. Once you reach around 4 million, you start getting at least one legendary bio. This is the legendary guarantee. And when you actually get to 25 million points, you receive 6 bios and they are all legendary for the S plus box. In addition, because I rank in the top 5%, I get 5 bios every week. The 400 goal I would say of course is great, but by the time you reach the top 5%, 400 gold per week isn't that much. Bio is important because it can significantly speed up a game due to each knockdown becoming increasingly fast. I'll cover more about bios in another gameplay video. Rival mode's importance varies depending on the gear you're currently focused on upgrading and your fighter's situation. Because rival mode mainly gives you parts which are most useful for transcendent gear, you may not necessarily need these glove or protector parts. They are mainly used when you grade up gear from unique to epic, epic to legendary, etc. and then using them when the gear is actually transcendent. The downside to this is that in Rival 4, you actually need 3 fighters in order to do well. And by Rival 5, you need 6 fighters because you're limited to each fighter fighting only once. So for most parts of a player's journey in the early to mid game, Rival mode would be behind KO and tag simply because you don't use it that often. In my specific situation, because I'm between Rival 5 and 6 and my KO mode and tag is pretty strong, Rival mode is actually the most important mode for me. I'll use this box from Rival 4 as an example of rewards, as I'll say it's fairly easy to get to Rival 4 and stay here because only 3 fighters are needed. The way I'd value this box is you have 22 unique glove parts, 22 protective glove parts, and then 19 glove parts and 19 protective epic parts. In order to buy these parts in the shop, you probably need anywhere between 6 to 16,000 coins, depending on your buying strategy in the rotation shop. So as an average, I'd say this is maybe around 10k coins, which is about 400 gold. You can look at this as being equivalent to hitting 200k points in KO mode. Yet, getting 200k points in KO mode is going to be much easier. Therefore, this is ranked behind KO and tag mode. Then there's League mode, which is getting all these boxes, playing League mode over here. This is essential in the sense that you have to do it. If you don't, you're wasting time because you want a box opened every second of every day. And once you're playing these, you can also get the victory package. If you strategize well, which doesn't take too much as well, you can hit all the daily missions and weekly missions. So these are all the daily and weekly missions which you can hit. And if you have a package running every minute of every day, I'll say you're probably getting around 15 to 20k coins worth of rewards every week. Contributing to swap box is also a pretty good mode, although I'd say that it depends on the club that you're in, so you have to find a good club. Why it matters is because you don't want to over contribute and everyone needs to share and contribute. Or you could also find a club where there's a crazy guy that's just donating a lot. In terms of the value that a swap box has, there's 2 sources of value. The first is the absolute value. For example, you look at a level 3 swap box. It's worth around 5k coins if you sell them. So if you donate 5k coins or less and you can get a level 3 box, then it's worth it. But even if you had to contribute 6k or 7k, it does not necessarily mean that it's a bad investment. As the name suggests, it's a swap box. There's value in the swap. If you donate 6 to 7k worth of gear, which you don't want anyway, now you can swap that for around 5k worth of random gear in the next week. They may or may not be of use to you. If you assume that this next 5k worth of gear is of no use, you can use that 5k worth of gear, donate them to the next swap box anyway. In fact, it was through swap boxes that I got my Chimera Omega piece. I would suggest going for fight clubs in which you can hit the level 5 swap box because it gives you F coins and costume tickets as well. F coins allow you to buy a whole range of things from the FC shop. For example, this is the Chimera Omega box. But the reason I ranked this mode so low is because most clubs are disorganized and have freeloaders. The other thing is that many of the products in the FC shop are random. So for example, although I stated that yes, you could buy a Chimera Omega box, it wasn't through this Omega box which I got an Omega piece. And in order to get into a decently good club, I'd say you need to be somewhat decently strong already. So it could take some time to get there. Fight Club Battle is probably the worst mode to focus on rewards wise, although it's the most fun. For a single win, you get 100 coins. It's not on screen, but that depends on a 10-man effort. If a club is weak and the other is strong, sometimes there's just no way to force out a win. No matter how organized you are, no matter how much you work together. which you can contrast this with Swapbox donations that can be organized and coordinated. That's why even Swapbox would rank higher than this one. Some would argue that top 5 clubs do get additional rewards for being in the top 100, and this can range from 500 gold and 1300 F coins up to 1000 gold and 3300 F coins if you're first. Now, if we just look at 51 to 100 ranking, if you win around 8 battles, so each season, which takes about a month, will be 2200 F coins and 500 gold. On a weekly basis, that's around 450 F coins and 125 gold. 125 gold is just so little when you look at KO mode or the boss mode in Fight Club. Unfortunately for the effort, I'd say it's not worth it, but it's fun. It's not really where resource maxing is at. I'll go into fighter stats in another video, because it'll take some time to really break down all the stats and understand each stat with regards to your goal. But as a tip, when it comes to farming specifically, you can see that I run 0 reflex. My characters all have 0 reflex, but many players keep insisting that reflex is very important. This isn't to disrespect them or say that they're bad. They're good and likely better than me, even if we had the same stats, but reflex is just not important for maximizing resources when farming. If it was that important for farming, I wouldn't be top 5% in tag and KO mode while also reaching Rival 6. Although I can't stay in Rival 6, but I can reach there. You will need reflex at the end game, which I'm kind of starting to reach that level. But if you focus on it too much in early to mid game, it slows your progress. And not forgetting that, because many of these top guys actually spend money on the game, and this video is mainly aimed at the free-to-play players who really need to focus on the right things in order to maximize progress. Therefore, building the right stat is very important. If you have tons of cash to throw, actually doesn't matter if you're farming wrongly, because you can always pay and buy items to make up for poor farming. And take this from someone who has spent $0 on the game. Here you can see people are always saying you need speed and reflex. Speed and reflex. But reflex is just not that important. Anyone who follows this video will be able to reach the top 5% in 6 months for a brand new account. If you have a somewhat built account, in 3 to 4 months. Take a look at your gear and decide on your strategy for game modes based on what you have. And if you have questions, pop it down below. I'll go into more detail about gear and training in another video. If you think you have a better strategy for farming specifically, post it down below and share. As for my personal goal, I'm going to try to reach the top 1% entering Master League. So far, my best rival mode is Rival 6, and it really gets increasingly more difficult as you get higher. But even without any expenditure, I think I can reach Master League within 6 months, which puts my total serious time on the game at about a year. And I think if I can actually reach Master League within a year, completely free to play, it would be an achievement.